The following podcast is part of the MindBodySpirit.fm podcast network.
So good, so good, so good.
Ready to rack to school and save big? Get to your Nordstrom Rack store today for thousands of deals from just $20.
Because I want to look fresh.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
I got a new backpack.
Score everyone's favorite denim, sneakers, boots, and activewear from Nike, Levi's, Steve Madden, Madewell, and Free People. Great brands, great prices. Everyone's got a reason to rack. Shop Nordstrom Rack and make it the best school year ever.
This episode is brought to you by the world's first reposado from Tequila Herradura. Made with slow-cooked, hand-harvested agave sealed into oak barrels and aged 11 months. Before being enjoyed in your glass. Experience the world's first reposado, Tequila Herradura. Please drink responsibly. Responsibility.org. Tequila Herradura. 40% alcohol by volume. Imported by Brown-Forman, Louisville, Kentucky. Herradura is a registered trademark. Copyright 2025 Brown-Forman Corporation.
Wholeness means to me being in a state of joy.
Wholeness means feeling complete, owning my authentic gifts.
Wholeness is really connected. Everything is connected to everything.
Wholeness is where we have access to all parts of ourselves.
So the card we got today is Age of Light. From the Work Your Light Oracle cards, and it says mystics and sages throughout the ages have predicted this period in history, and you decided to incarnate in the middle of it. There is no mistake that you're supposed to be here in this time of great change. If you ever feel unprepared or daunted by the path that is calling you, know this. You've been training for this for lifetimes. You're way more than the days that have breathed through you in this life. You're also all the lifetimes that came before. All of these experiences have polished your soul into the most magnificent expression that is your authentic self. Your soul has many facets. Imagine a fingerprint. Your soul is a million times more intricate than that. If you put that together, all the fingerprints of all the people that you've been, you would not even get close to fathoming how much of a unique masterpiece you are. You came in with a clear soul plan. You came in with wisdom beyond your years. This is the part of you that longs to be seen. This is the part of you that is ready to step forward, that is ready to emerge. This is not a lifetime to stay hidden, but to step forth, to be seen and rise. Maybe that was for me. Maybe that was for everybody. I think a lot of people are feeling this way, but it really does dovetail really nicely into what we're talking about, even though it might not seem like it at the beginning. So,
right.
And I just wanted to say before we start that, like, when there's a certain word that we're going to use a lot in this podcast in this next month. And, I have friends that won't read books that have like F words in it or whatever. And, it's just a word. Like if you were to say that in China, I mean, okay, that's not fair. But if you were to say it in another country, they would not have the same meaning. And so it's whatever meaning you attach to it. So if you're going, every time I say that word, then my friends just start to giggle and they get all weird, and it's like being in maturation class all over again when someone says penis and you're like, you don't know what to do.
Right.
And I think we just have to recognize that the way we're using this word and the meaning that we're attaching to this word is going to be different than maybe what you've experienced before.
Yeah.
So just be open. If it does bother you, then maybe this isn't for you.
Right.
But,
and if you probably, don't listen to this podcast episode in the car with your kids, maybe, maybe if you have, some sexual trauma, maybe, take care of yourself if it's not for you. You know what I mean? If it's really triggering you, that's okay. Like we're not going to try and trigger. We're not going to make it, I don't think at all. In fact, I'm trying to do the opposite. And just to like bounce off of what you have just said, this is what I want to kind of get out of these episodes is like, I'm going to say some words and see what they, how they do it. And so let's say nasal cavity. Okay. Nasal cavity. Think about that word. Okay. Clavicle. The clavicle. Do you know where these things are? Like you do, right? Your diaphragm. You know where that is? Diaphragm. Your patella. That's your kneecap. Your spleen. Your glands. You have glands all over your body. Like we just in kind of over the last few years, I feel like I just had kind of a tap on my shoulder that says, you're almost 50 and you kind of don't know. You kind of don't know everything about yourself. And so it's really just in that kind of a way that I kind of went on this journey of exploration. It was like somebody recommended a book, and sometimes they do it, people do it all the time, but sometimes you get that hook. And part of that hook was I recognized that reaction I might have had, from it, and thought, okay, I need to go in and see what is actually causing that disruption or whatever. I need to actually go into it, and that's where this began a few years ago. And then I recently reread it, and I told Julian, I was like, you got to reread it. And I've got a few books. These are several books that I feel like are just, we've been doing books this year, and it's just like we're going to take a short moment and talk about this specifically for women, I think, because I think for women, a lot of us, that our body, as far as our feminine part of our body, almost just doesn't exist until we maybe start having a period, and then it's gross and a pain and we don't like it. And that does a lot of that programs a lot energetically about our bodies, and I just wanted for myself, and I wanted to kind of maybe reprogram that and see it in a different way and be able to see those parts of me as I do the clavicle and the diaphragm, just parts of who I am. They don't necessarily mean more or less, but they are part of who I am.
Yeah, I think the part we're going to talk about is a little bit different than a clavicle, but it is part of our body, and we need to love it and honor it for what it does for us. Because
but do you think that, like, in West Africa, where they're walking around mostly nude, is it as different for them as it is for us? I feel like it's different because of other stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. And but I guess I'm going into like some of the book, like where she's using that specifically as reclaiming your power, like as a source of power.
True.
Which is a little difficult or different than another body part. Like
that's true.
So it is special. It is, but
that's true.
And it's another, I think it's both of those things.
Yeah, you're right. It's not just nothing, but it's like, but here we are on one end. It was like on one end. And we've got to in order to get to the other end, maybe we have to go to the middle and say, okay, maybe it's not. So that's what happens is you go to like, it's just a part of my body. And then you can go to, it's a power source,
Yeah.
It's a power source.
Yeah. And reading this book, like her life, and I don't know if we want to start this now, but
yeah,
I know that, I've been hesitant to recommend this book, partly because of the name. Yeah. And her life is pretty extreme, I would say. Like she lived in what did she call it? Like a sex school or something for 5 years?
She did. She did.
And I think like what she's saying is you don't have to do that. It's kind of like she did it for us in a way. And that we can use her experiences to reclaim some of that. So I don't think it's a prescription. This book isn't a prescription to say like, do what I did.
No.
It's to help to show the discoveries that she was able to discover. So if you're nervous about reading that book, thinking like, well, I don't want to, that's not my life, or I don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
Lean in like you did and maybe just take a look.
Yeah. You take what works. And the other thing that's important. So the book is called Pussy, a Reclamation is the name of the book. And at the beginning of the book, she does talk about some sexual trauma she had. And that was one thing that that was really eye-opening and made sense to me was when there is sexual trauma, or when those sexual experiences have happened before puberty or before, the natural, it's like they turn on and then they do their things. It does turn on that brain system, but they can't have, it's not for reproductive. So we're talking just like human beings, like an animal, a human being, like, you have this and this, the pituitary gland sends out the, and you start to change and become from a child to a man, right? Well, when those things get turned on, then it's very likely that they are higher or more intense, that the sexual drive is much higher and more intense than if they weren't. And so I'm wondering if that was part of her, because she did have, sexual abuse. And
yeah, that makes sense. And let's give her a name. It's Regina Jansauer, right?
Yeah.
But she refers to herself as Mama Gina.
Mama Gina. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think she just, at some point, she was brought up in a very conservative family and was being abused at the same, about her dad was a psychologist, a psychiatrist, but didn't have anything to do with the family. Like there was a lot of dysfunction in her life. And I feel like at some point she just had to pick everything up and figure out things on her own, and it needed to be 180 degrees different from where she began. That was her journey. And I think you're right though. She doesn't, it's not a prescription. She's not like, here's what you should do. Here's what you should do. But I did you notice on the front of the book, which I don't, it'll be on the copy. Do you have the book? It's our logo. Our logo is on the front of the book.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's the flower. It's the seed of life. It's the middle of the seed of life. Yeah. And that is all about connectedness. And that's it's just being connected. And I think as women, a lot of us are trained, I would say, or programmed to be completely disconnected from an entire system of our body,
Right.
or even worse, give that system to another person and they own it. You know what I mean?
That is true. I don't like how that feels, but I feel that.
Yeah. Yeah. And she uses at the beginning of the book, she talks about using the word, why did she call it this big word? And the book pussy. And I, and she, at first you're like, yeah, because it's like this, it's a jaw dropper, right? Like that's for sure.
Yeah, shocking.
It's shocking. But she went through and she said, let's talk about the name of that part of our anatomy, which cutting over to the book, there's a book called Come As You Are, where I'm going to talk about a little bit. And she's an actual doctor, but like an educator. And she's saying like, yeah, everybody calls that part of our body usually the vagina. They usually call it the vagina. And she would say that's like calling a men's penis a scrotum. Like it's not actually, that's not what it is at all. And in Pussy, she says, she's like, look, it's really the whole part outside is called the vulva. She's like, but that reminds me of an old, boxy, ugly car.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, it's not really even the complete word as far as, it doesn't consider the inside organs of a woman.
Right.
And so she says, so, the worst, here's this word, Pussy is the closest word we have. And yet if you call a woman that, it's degrading and there's some ownership in that, like you claim it kind of for her. And then if you call a man that, it's the worst thing you could call a man is that. And so she says, so I'm reclaiming it. That's what she's going to do. It's like, I'm going to own that word and take it back. And
I love that. Love
right?
that so much. Like, I think there's so many other ways we can do that with other words and stuff like that. I love how she decided that she's going to take it back, and it's powerful.
It reminds me of in the LGBTQ, they take back, they're using the queer, they're taking back queer.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are using queer and saying, hey, queer just means not straight. It's not the regular typical. It's queer. And so I feel like that. So I had read a book about that. And so this was kind of like, okay, I get that. I get how it's like, we're just going to start with what we have and change it because the fact is that it isn't, those definitions that we use it for are the complete opposite of what is true. So we're not going to use a different word. We're going to take that word back, I think. And at the beginning of the book, chapter 1, or maybe in an intro, Christine Northrup, she's a doctor, usually very holistic-y doctor, has a quote that I remember I was on the bike ride, listening to it for the second time, heard this quote. I think I turned on Marco Polo and I was like, I'm sorry, you've got to read this book. And it wasn't just you need to. It was more like, will you read this so I can have someone to talk to? And she says, if you want to know where your true power lies, go to the places you've been taught to fear the most. Your orgasm, your period, labor and birth, menopause, all processes that involve your pussy, she says, which is so true. I mean, when I heard that, it just, because it's like, it's true. These are normal processes of who I am. And it's like, you know what I mean? It's like not something and maybe, like I say, it's not like we can just pretend like everybody's going to have these conversations now. I would still need to have it with a safe person. But the fact that I don't know how to have conversations necessarily about those, or that it's not supposed to, I'm like, I don't know. I think there is something to that, I do know that in other shadow work, you do go to those places that are hard, and that's where you find a lot of healing. You go back to those moments of trauma. You don't run away from them.
Right. And I
So
think
it makes
the
sense.
next generation is definitely getting more open, I feel. And when I first heard my daughter tell her boyfriend that she had her period, I was like, I'm so uncomfortable. I don't know what to do. Like my first reaction was to say, like, I don't think you should do that. And then I really had to sit with it for a minute and say, like, actually, that's pretty cool that you're willing to do that and you're not embarrassed, and that you're just accepting it as a normal part of life, and even in a way celebrating it by bringing it up.
Right.
So I think these future generations are doing way better than we're doing, which makes me so excited. And yet there's still healing to be done for the rest of us.
Right.
So I'm glad we're talking about it.
Yeah, I started my period the summer before 6th grade. I was 11 years old. And I did not tell a soul. And I'm telling you, so let's see. So I went through 6th grade, 7th grade. I think it might have been the middle of 8th grade. So for 2.5 years, I was hyper vigilant about it. And I was sitting there in junior high, and my friend walks in one morning and she looks me in the eye, and she's this little sassy girl. She's like, I just started my period last night.
I know, why do we have to
was
whisper? But we whisper.
I know, right? And I was like, I started mine 2.5 years ago. And I was shocked that she just would say it. And I feel really bad for that version of me that for 2.5 years. And the thing is this is what's the thing when I started my period, I went to my mom and she was like, you started. She was like so excited for me. She was like, this is so exciting. So there wasn't shame. She was very excited for me. So even though I had that positive thing, I still got the message, don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't let it be seen. And then even with that friend, finally I told the first person I told outside of my, family, the first person I told. And then I remember being in high school I have a vivid picture of sitting on the toilet and literally saying a prayer, please don't let, you know what I mean? Because it was like, that's the worst thing that could have happened, is someone know that you're having your period, which is like every month.
And half of the school was experiencing that, at least, maybe a little less. Gosh. Yeah, we really have been taught to kind of hide it. I remember slyly passing a tampon to somebody, like, oh, I hope you don't see it.
Yep.
And just keeping it such a big secret. And yet, like we said, it's half the population. It's crazy.
Right. And it's a system of your body. It's doing what it needs to do.
We hope you enjoyed part 1 of our sexy summer shorts and hope you tune in next week for part 2.
On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
This episode is brought to you by Diet Coke. You know that moment when you just need to hit pause and refresh? An ice-cold Diet Coke isn't just a break. It's your chance to catch your breath and savor a moment that's all about you. Always refreshing, still the same great taste. Diet Coke. Make time for you time.
Una silla de masajes puede parecer extravagante. 8 configuraciones diferentes, intensidad ajustable, además es calefaccionado. Y se siente tan bien. Sí, una silla de masajes puede parecer extravagante. Y dos, bueno, aún más. Pero cuando esas sillas de masajes vienen con un auto, se vuelven bastante prácticas. El nuevo Volkswagen Tiguan 2025 con funciones premium como los asientos delanteros con masaje disponibles. Solo parece extravagante.
And now, here is Karen Crawford to give us some ideas about what the stars have in store for us this month. If you want to know more about how the heavens impact you, reach out to Karen at karensmithcrawford.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the August forecast for 2025. And I want to thank the Wholeness Network ladies for having me be your friendly astrologer. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And today, we're going to be focusing on the neat elements coming up for us shortly. Let me just scooch over here. So just a preview, on August 9th, we have a full moon in Aquarius that will happen early in the morning Eastern time. Then August 11th, we will see Mercury going direct. And then August 23rd, we have a new moon in Virgo. We're just moving on through. I can't believe how fast time is going right now. So let's focus first on this full moon chart. And when we have the full moon, you can see the sun and the moon are opposite at 16 degrees, Leo and Aquarius. And the sun in Leo is about being authentic. It's about being creative. If you look at the sun, the idea is there's this life force that's available, and we all come in as a point of consciousness. We have an individuality. We have our face, we have our fingers, we have our retinas. Each one of us is amazingly cosmically unique. And the energy for Leo is performing on some level. It's receiving recognition or approval for what we're doing and knowing that our individual contribution matters to the world. A lot about heart and inspiration. With the moon being in Aquarius, this is more about our individual feelings, our emotional freedom. How do we contribute to the greater good? So community or grassroots feels associated with Aquarius. When we find our tribe, we can feel like, oh, I've connected with people who get me. So this time can be a really good opportunity to find that balance between the head and the heart, and kind of how we can be an individual, but also recognizing the talents and the abilities of all those around us. What's interesting is we're going to be having these soft aspects where we see Uranus in a trine with Pluto, and we also see Saturn and Neptune in a sextile with Uranus, and then also a sextile with Pluto. So that's going to happen off and on now that Pluto's in Aquarius for good. Uranus is shifting into Gemini. We'll go back into Taurus briefly, but back into Gemini. And both Saturn and Neptune will dip their toes and then finish. And then they're still in retrograde right now, but will then eventually continue on in Aries. So we're going to have this kind of nice energy in the sky where these outer planets have an ease amongst them. And what's interesting in this particular chart is if you look at, let me make this blue here. So we have Uranus in a nice trine to Mars, which is in a nice little trine to Pluto, and coming over to Uranus. So there's this beautiful, when we have three trines that connect planets, or a trine to each planet, so three trines in total, we call that a grand trine. It's a configuration we see in modern astrology. And at the very top is the sextile of Saturn and Neptune. So we call this a kite formation. And so you can kind of imagine there's a little tail and, you know, getting the key ready for some lightning. So when we see, so Mars is opposite Saturn and Neptune, and Mars is basically describing how we go after what we want. It's our energy, it's our aggression. And Mars doesn't really love being in the sign of Libra. I much prefer to be in Aries. So Aries is its domicile or its home. And so Libra is where we find Mars in detriment, because when the energy of I want, I desire, I'm going after something is put into the energy of, well, what does everybody else want? Let's talk about it. Maybe we can all have something that we want so we can compromise. Slows Mars down, makes him a little grumpy, perhaps. But that's okay, because then, you know, it works on diplomacy, which is a wonderful thing. And with Saturn and Neptune, we have this building energy with Saturn and this dissolving energy with Neptune. So this full moon might be interesting regarding how are you going after what you want, and are you hitting, is there like a brake pedal to your gas, or is there something that's making you kind of confused about things? Because sometimes Neptune can do that as well. So there's a lot of extra energy that is assistive in communication, because this grand trine is in the element of air. So air relates to how we think, how we speak, communicate, intelligence, decisions, headiness. So again, I feel like there's something about moving from our head to our hearts and finding a way to even just thinking about how we move with people in the world, just again, bringing it out from the inner to the outer, how that might come up for you. And the other thing we see that's really nice is we have, let me get pink. So we see Venus here is coming closer to Jupiter, which is lovely. So, you know, Venus is representative, the universal representation of love. Jupiter is the universal representation of like abundance and faith and optimism. So this is kind of all happening at an interesting time where Venus is coming up closer to Jupiter, and Venus rules Libra. So again, there's this little tie-in from, you know, Mars having all this, you know, this is more a personal planet for us, in a sense that, you know, Mars is getting this extra energy, and then, you know, Libra is the sign that Mars is in. So this is connection to the Venus. So it gives us an opportunity to, I think, really, again, balance our head and our heart, how we go after what we want, and boosting our creativity, and maybe giving us some courage to do things that might be a little more difficult that we can step into at this time. And they will actually, Venus will actually be connected to Jupiter on August 11th, which is nice. So if you're getting married August 11th, you picked a great day. But you might just have amazing love in general kind of things happen for you. So maybe leave somebody a nice note this day, or write your own self a love letter. Maybe prepay a coffee for somebody and have them write on the cup, "You are worthy," or "You are loved," or something like that. I don't know. See how that works for you. Let's see. And Venus is going to go into Leo, the sign of Leo, on August 25th. So that'll be nice, because the representation of love shifting to Leo, which is very heart-centered, I think is also very nice. We also are coming towards the end of Mercury retrograde. So this is also interesting. The full moon's happening around then. And let's see here. So let's clear these drawings. And let's go to that next slide. So Mercury is going direct August 11th. Remember, he went retrograde July 18th at 15 degrees Leo. And so when planets go backwards, we review, we reflect, we take extra time. And Leo is about that creativity, that talent, our heart. And so maybe now that we're nearing the end of the retrograde, just even looking back and saying, okay, what has been coming up for me about living from my heart or my creativity? And if you haven't really stepped out in a way that felt like you were shining your own individual light, maybe finding a way to do that while Mercury starts to move forward and get some steam built back up. So Mercury will be moving direct August 11th, which always gets the collective sigh of relief from everybody. And then we have to talk about the sun going into the sign of Virgo. Virgo was typically illustrated as, you know, a virgin young woman, and she's holding wheat or scales. Some, they used to draw her with wings. And the idea is, the wheat is coming in and there's a discernment between, okay, this wheat has a bunch of bugs on it, looks nasty, like this is not going to feed our horses, to this is amazing wheat and getting the seeds out and things like that. So there's Virgo energy has this discernment ability. And so if your sun is in the sign of Virgo or a really important planet for you, there's this idea of being able to separate the wheat from the chaff. And that level of discernment is amazing because you're going to know if something's off, like you know exactly how to load the dishwasher. You might even help your friends know how to load their dishwashers. And so on the low road, it can be petty or picky or kind of OCD-ish, but on the high road, knowing how to step in and edit something and point people in the right direction is because there's just such a desire to be of service. Anytime the Virgo idea that energy is being critical is only to make something better. So allowing these really analytical minds, these very practical folks with a logic to help us all kind of fall into alignment is amazing. So give your friendly Virgo a hug because sometimes they just aren't quite as appreciated as I think they should be. And so when we can celebrate that ability for them to discern and be analytical, it's a wonderful thing. And so these are some old drawings. This is like from a book, like a 15th century book or something like that. And so I thought these were neat pictures. So I really like that. So, okay, next up is the new moon in Virgo. And this is just the next day because you'll see the sun is still at 0 degrees. So the new moon is happening at 0 degrees. Let me get my jar here. So this 0 degrees, Virgo, 22 minutes. And so the new moon is when that sun and the moon come together. So there's no reflection and there's a dark sky. And when new moons happen, it's a great time to manifest. So you're planting seeds, you're thinking about, okay, what do I want to take place over the next moon cycle? Because we know the moon cycle is about 27 and a half days. But some people talk about moon cycles even being, like 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, year and a half. Like there's all these different ranges people can look at it. But with the moon and the sun being the sign of Virgo, this is a really good time to make a list of projects you want to do, ideas for improving your life. I think of Marie Kondo, where she's like, is this bringing me joy? So, going down into your basement and just filling up one bag that can either go to Goodwill or if it needs to go to, potentially garbage or whatever you're cleaning through, and working on that in a step-by-step fashion. So one of the things that can be good with this energy is progress and not necessarily perfection, because perfection can feel like this ultimate ideal that we all have. And it's like, have I reached that? It's overwhelming. You don't do anything. So the perfection paralysis of Virgo is very real. So bite-sized bits are probably the best way to go. And I was even thinking, this could be, if you don't floss your teeth, maybe this new moon's a great time just to try it for a month. Try flossing your teeth, every other day or something like that. Just putting a reminder in your calendar just to kind of help you do that. We still have this outer planet configuration of these harmonious aspects, which just are kind of like, for right now, my teacher, Michael Bryan, says that the soft aspects don't speak as loudly as the harder aspects, like a square and opposition. So we'll see how this translates for the collective. But just knowing that there's some support that's kind of there in the back. And with air and fire elements, it's motivating. There's something to reach into and move with. There's a little square between Mars and Jupiter, which isn't a big deal, but it's out there. So there might be a little, and sometimes Mars and Jupiter together can have this feeling of success. You've got the desire, you've got the opportunity, let's make it happen kind of a thing. So that's nice. So, but I feel like the most important thing about this new moon is looking at your life and seeing if there's little things you can edit, shift, tweak in some way that makes you feel more empowered, that you're more in control of your health, maybe, or something that helps you feel like you're mastering something, might be a great time for you to think about a class you want to take. Virgo goes with cooking, I feel like, too. Sometimes it's like, I have all my ingredients laid out. I know exactly what's going in there, and I'm going to make the best. Oh yeah, bread. So yeah, bread is like fabulous for this Virgo new moon. So think about the things that you want to work on. And there's a lot of energy and support for you right now with this new moon coming up for sure. And then I have as my last slide a little thank you, and have a fantastic August. This is a church in France that has this beautiful stained glass. And so I encourage you to do the things that you are interested in. And while we are in the first part of August, to really live with your heart and feel that power that each and every one of us have as creative individuals. So I bid you a happy farewell, and I hope you have an amazing month ahead, and all the best to you. So I'll see you later. Bye.
Hey friend, it's Shalene
and Michelle, and we're excited to tell you about our Wholeness Library membership.
It's a vast library of videos and holistic tutorials with experts around the world who teach everything from energy healing to Reiki to chakra work, mediumship, guided meditations, and more.
With our Wholeness Library membership at just $5.55 a month, you have access to all of that online, plus monthly live Zoom meetups and our app for learning and healing anywhere, anytime.
No pressure, just love. Try us with a free 7-day trial membership, and you can cancel anytime.
Come to thewholenessnetwork.com and enjoy everything from A to Zen.
See you there.
How can you manifest large amounts of money from sources expected and unexpected? That's exactly what I teach you how to do on my show, Manifesting with Feng Shui. Hi, I'm Christina Hollinger, and I manifested my way all the way to HGTV. Now I help you design the life you deserve through simple and modern Feng Shui manifesting methods. Start following Manifesting with Feng Shui with Christina Hollinger and listen on mindbodyspirit.fm podcast network and wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Suzanne Geisman, and if you've ever wondered about life after death, or if it's possible to connect with higher consciousness, I invite you to join me for my podcast, The Awakened Way. It's my mission to share with you that our loved ones who have passed are always with us, and we are so very loved. I want to teach you how to live a consciously connected and divinely guided life. Listen here on the mindbodyspirit.fm podcast network.